Hi, this is Denise Matthew. Hope you're doing well. Back again for another week of the transits. So we have a few things happening as we count down to the last of the year. Hard to believe we're days away before we get into 2022. A few things that are happening this week is we do have Jupiter moving to the line 4, so that's going to change up the energy a little bit, and I'll talk about the fates in a minute or two. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I did a Venus retrograde special with Raphael from Radiant Reality, and he actually gave me a copy of the recording that we did. So I'm going to post that on my channel so you can check it out. Otherwise, I would have talked about Venus retrograde today, but because I have that already, I'm going to just post that because I went into deep detail about all the different gates that Venus will be retrograding over and some implications of what it could mean, because it is actually going to be going over that mystical line I talked about, the 54 line 4, which is kind of interesting. So I went in great detail. I'll have timestamps so you can just go right to any areas that you want to go to. And at the end of the video, we also have a just for every sign would be your ascendant sign. He pulled a tarot card and I just talked about what house it was going to be in and the things that it might affect within your life and a little bit more specific information. So if you want to check that out, please do. And other than that, let's get into the transits. So we're starting out the week with the sun in the gate 11, and we also have the earth in the gate 12. So when we talk about the gate 11, it is this idea of reflection and it's a visual memory. This is abstract collective energy. And the interesting thing about this is it is a ajna gate. So we know that with any ajna gate, it is going to have some level of awareness within it. Now, the awareness that comes from the gate 11 is this idea of seeing something in the moment, like maybe a part of something that you sort of visualize, but not really understanding the full meaning of it until later on when all the pieces of the puzzle sort of come together. So in other words, you would have an epiphany based on something that you've seen in the past. So there is some level of reflection, which really makes it a lot of sense for this time of the year when we're sort of reflecting on the year that's gone by and the things that have happened and where we've gone and where we would like to go in the future, those types of things. Now, with the earth in the gate 12, we are grounding into this idea of caution. And caution is, in this case, is really about social caution. This is individual energy. This is about deciding whether you want to socialize or not. And when we think about this time of the year, and we're always talking about sort of, this is a holiday season for a lot of people. This is a time where a lot of people are getting together, or they're having parties, they're having get-togethers of some sort. And you have this energy that is in the earth, we're grounding into it. It is what we're actually manifesting on the world. In the world, you could say, this energy of sort of taking your time, deciding who you want to hang out with or not, and maybe not wanting to hang out with people. But a lot of times when we have these jobs that we feel like we're required to go to these office parties or these work parties, and maybe we don't necessarily even want to go. And so there could be this feeling of wanting to just kind of be in your own space and yet feeling that you need to go to one of these parties. And the truth with this is either being in the mood to socialize or not. What happens is if you really aren't in the mood to socialize and yet you still go out and do socialize, that can sometimes cause more of an issue than if you actually stay at home, because you may not be in the mood and you may just not have a good vibe, you could say. And the expectation a lot of times are people think that you should be a certain way when you're at a party, and maybe you not necessarily want to be that way because this is individual energy. This is where we're expressing ourselves individually. And some people will be more inclined to feel this energy than others. The other thing that to keep in mind is that we do have Neptune remaining in the gate 12 and has been in the gate 12 for a long time. So for most of the week, we're going to have a full manifesting channel, the 1222, which means that there is potential for more emotional energy, for more of this kind of concept of feelings. And we have times where we're feeling ready to go out and kind of up and ready. And then other times where we just don't feel it and we don't want to go. Ultimately, if you don't feel the energy to actually want to go out, again, this is just one more reminder that sometimes it's just better to stay home, to be true to what you actually want, rather than conforming to the ideals or what other people think you should do. And if you do, it might actually work out better, because I think when we're in authenticity to what we really want in our lives, a lot of times that works to our advantage. So it is, like I said, a manifesting channel, which means there's going to be more energy for us to be manifesting in the world. And what that means is that we're manifesting our individuality and we're being our authentic self. This is also creative energy, as any individual energy is. And this is creating from a place of love for what we do, love for our creative ability, but not necessarily this need to impress anybody with our creativity. Instead, it's an expression of who we are, an expression of just feeling good because it makes us feel good to do it. And so this is the time where we may get those melancholic moments, and we may get those moments of kind of feeling the blues. There are many people around the holidays that don't actually have happy memories. They don't feel happy around this energy. And so if you look at the gate 11, there's this visual memory of something that maybe wasn't pleasant, and you don't want to kind of relive that energy, and you don't want to be in the frame of having to act as if this is a fun time of year when maybe it isn't at all. So the biggest key with this energy, and as we move through this week, this concept of what do you really want to do, and kind of aligning with what you want to do. And if some people say that's a selfish idea, well, that's fine, because sometimes we need to be selfish in order to protect our energy so that we're aligning and moving into what is best for us as opposed to what's best for others. And I mean, I think that we talked about this the last couple of weeks. Is this energy of being in your own flow and understanding that the only place where you will find the opportunities is the flow of who you are and where you are meant to go in your life. So this is one more time where standing in your own truth and doing what you need to do for yourself might be exactly what you need to do. And if you add in that Jupiter is moving into the fourth line, we do get to the fourth line of burnout, which is actually what it's called. And Jupiter is in detriment in this energy, which means that it's not in its best place. It also means that there is a really good potential that we could be out there just doing way more than we're physically capable of. And a lot of people are doing, holiday things. It's that time of the year where people spend a lot of time maybe decorating, preparing meals, shopping, whatever you're doing, wrapping presents, or something that is really taking a lot of time and energy. And again, the socialization perspective. So what it's saying for us is really be true to what feels right for you. And then this experience concept of always wanting to be out in the world can sometimes, take you out of the flow of what's right for you. One thing to keep in mind is that this is an emotional energy. The gate 30 is half of the channel 4130. So if you have the gate 41, you might feel this even more. It could be an emotional energy to get out and experience life. This is an experience junkie, you could say, where you're out there trying to get more and more experience because you need to feel something. It's almost like this desire to feel is so great that it's like a cavern that never gets filled potentially. But when you step back and understand that sometimes we're driven by our emotions. And if we just step back and see what's happening, we can actually realign with the energy, know what's happening, and just being kind of, I guess you could say, coaxed along and not really thinking about what we're doing. And again, when we're using our own strategy to decide what's right for us and what isn't right, because a lot of times our inner authority will say, no, this is not right for you. But our mind will say, oh, yes, absolutely, I have to go. And so this whole fear of missing out on things, it could be a big theme this week, but it also could mean that you could be out getting, out burning yourself out, getting too exhausted, and you've gotten so run down. You open yourself up to be not able to enjoy the holidays or the downtime like you might want to. The line 4 is another thing to talk about, in that this is what they call the line of contagion. So in other words, this is a potential for where we actually see for the next, I don't know, I think it's about 6 days, where we might see more of this contagious energy, or even flus and types of things that could potentially be there as well. So, this is a time to really batten down the hatches on precautions that you might take to keep yourself healthy. The other aspect is that we also have Mercury in the gate 10. This is, again, more individual energy that we're coming into. And the whole thing about Mercury is it's going to click into the integration circuit that we already have going. The nodes are in the 2034, which is bringing us that busyness. When we get the gate 10, this is bringing what we might consider the behavior or the way we sort of interact or how we act in the world. Now, the gate 10 is how we act in the world so we know how to behave in certain situations. I mean, that's what the gate 10 is about. But there's also this idea of the love of self, empowerment, because anything individual is always going to be about empowering ourselves. And when we're feeling empowered, we're empowering other people just by being there. So with Mercury there, we do have it mostly in just neutral, but we do have it in one line where we're actually going out in the world, the fourth line, and we're trying to potentially be somebody who we're not and trying to be that person so that other people will engage or like who you are instead of being your authentic self. Now, the key with any individual energy is always to be your authentic self, to know that that is part of who you are. And when you're being your authentic self and people accept you for who you are, then that's the perfect scenario. Because a lot of times if we're out there in the world and we're being somebody else based on what we think others will like, then what happens is that's what they see from us and that's what they learn to expect from us. And eventually that's what they expect from us all the time. And we have a difficult time once we get into that pattern of breaking the pattern and saying, well, no, I'm not actually like that. This is who I really am. And that's where we can kind of get into this disconnect of being the authentic self with being this made for out in the world self. And when we connect those two together and we are acting exactly who we are, no matter what the situation is, and that just generally makes it for a more peaceful experience where you actually are out there having fun because you're being yourself. You don't have to worry about if you're on cue, if you're doing the right thing, or how people are looking at you, because they know who you are based on who you are always, and not an illusion that you've created to try and fit in. And Venus is still in the gate 61, line 6, and that is connecting with Pluto, which really strips all this energy down to this idea of what exactly do we not know? What are the things that are most important for us to know? And because this is about wanting to know the unknowable, when we have Venus there, there could be this idea of looking for hidden things, the hidden mysteries, the hidden ideas or concepts, the feeling of people not necessarily telling you the truth, or maybe they're hiding something from you, or they're keeping something from you, especially with the whole 6124 channel. But the key with this is that sometimes the answers are just not there to be given, even if you think that they are. It's about this awareness that takes time. And this is the gate 61 is pressure to get those big downloads that show us the path of what is exactly happening in our world. And the awareness that comes here is all about universal underlying principles, or kind of the secrets to the universe, secrets that we haven't known about, those metaphysical or mystical secrets that might actually show themselves to us now. And the other key with this energy is when we look at the idea of it's going to go retrograde. So we're going to be going over these themes over and again. From a big world perspective, like I said, this could be this idea of people being suspicious, not feeling that they're being told the right thing. This could be wondering if they're making up stories about different things, and is the truth actually making it to the collective. Pluto will be moving to the gate 61, line 6 on the 15th of December. So that's when we really have it in exaltation, which really talks to this idea of the highest version of this energy, which means that we could be inspired or have mystical things that kind of will be explained to us in some way. Things will start to potentially start to make some more sense to us as opposed to how it's been for a very long time. This is where we're changing the whole dynamic of what we know. But again, this is divine timing. We never really know when it will happen, only that there is potential. This is pressure, of course, that will eventually go to the awareness center, which is the ajna, and this would be the gate 24 where Uranus is right now. So it's about being open to what shows up, the mystical experiences that potentially could happen, and the things that you learn along the way. This is an inspiration that will give the clarity to the collective, and that's how it's written in the Revi Ching, which really sounds promising because it's energy that we haven't had in a long time. Because based on human design, the only time that we would have an energy that is being represented in the collective is if we actually have individuals with that in their body graph, and that would be the collective aura. But because Pluto's cycle is about 248 years, for some reason, I always change it to 256 or 265, but it's actually 248. And the key with that is to know that you could say, even if somebody lived to be 100, 110 years old, we still haven't had that energy for 130 years. So this is definitely changing mentally, what Ra Uru said, mentally mutating us in a way that even our mental health may be changed in a way. And when it's in exaltation, the feeling would be that we're being stripped down to the core, but whatever we're building up is going to be something better for the collective than what we have right now. Mars moves into the gate 34, and it's connecting with the South Node. This is bringing a lot of power and kind of drive to the gate 34. So it's kind of, you could say, activating the South Node because it is connecting the energy. Because a lot of times these slower moving, and these are not planets, they're actually points, that are connected to the moon, the nodes, but it can sometimes activate the energy when it gets in that same area. And with Mars going there, it could be activating this gate 34, and of the south node has been transiting there for a while, and even the 2034, because they are in opposition to each other and also make a channel. So Mars in the gate 34 is it is exalted in two lines and it is in detriment in one. So on the exalted side, this is the idea of staying the course to victory. So in other words, once you decide that you're moving towards a destination or something you want to get to, a goal, a dream or something like that, is staying the course and really knowing that when you continue to push your energy forward, eventually you're going to get where you want to go. So it's giving us the energy to stay the course, to continue on to the victory that we want to, or the things that we actually want to bring into manifestation. The other perspective is when I talk about the abuse of power, this is also this idea of only using power when necessary. So there is a duality as well. So in other words, we're only going to push when we need to, but there is potential for other people to be wanting to get their way, to have their own agenda, to want to push the envelope, you could say. The other aspect of this is Mars is also an exaltation in the line 5, which is annihilation. And if anybody has been reading the community page, I talked about annihilation because when we did the lines, and the annihilation here is this idea that this power vanquishes all. And we could say that this is like, you could say the good power in a lot of ways when we're doing the exaltation, is this idea that you have the power to get rid of or to vanquish or to overcome the inferior forces. So in other words, if somebody is bullying you or trying to keep you low or not wanting you to actually rise in any way, shape, or form, this is the ability to use the power that you have to eliminate that resistance and to continue to push forward with where you want to go in your future and not allow people to push you down any longer. This is not anything like it has to be physical or anything like that. This is just sometimes using the power of your words to have an opening into a topic that most people might want to talk about. But once you open it, it's the power is released and suddenly everybody has to talk about this thing that everybody's been ignoring. It does result in an opening into something new and new energy, because without this ability to, you could say, crack into a new energy and allow new energy to flow into the space that you've made, nothing transforms, nothing changes. And Ra Uru, who called the Mars the mutation, or the way we shift the world, or the things that shift. And when we have the gate 34, this is mutative energy. In other words, it's individual energy. So we could be having this idea that we are actually having new ways of using our power, or using our power in a way that is beneficial to the world, because ultimately the gate 34 is the power of the great that is beneficial to the world, or beneficial to the whole. And with the gate 10 as well, with the integration circuit, we do have more of this energy of the integration circuit happening. One is that we're talking about the 1034. This is really this idea of just believing in your own truth and allowing yourself to be the master of your destiny, in that you are deciding what is right for you, holding on to what you believe in despite what other people might say or do. And that's the key with the energy of the 1034. The 1020 is they call it the channel of awakening, which is this mystical ability to connect with something bigger than you. So what I feel like we're moving into, the energy that we're moving into, because the sun moves out of the gate 11, it will be moving into the gate 10. We are having this mystical ability to be awake, to find those, you could say, secrets of the universe. Like I said before, just more of these opportunities to have these downloads, or these mysteries, or these satoris, or these moments where we suddenly have this clarity about life in general. And I'm not saying they're going to last forever, but there is potential for them to come. And sometimes they'll last for just a couple seconds, but it's almost like you have this feeling of being in the flow of life and understanding what it all means, compared to the usual chaos and busyness that we most times live within. So this is really activating all those energies that can awaken us, can move us through a level of consciousness. The other perspective of this idea that it is from the identity center right to the throat, and this is going to potentially bring more of a sensitivity to what you are saying to the world. More of us are going to be expressing ourselves from the core of our being. Now, some people are naturally set up like this, so that's just part of their body graph. But for those who don't necessarily have this energy, there's potential for you to feel very hurt if people are not accepting what you have to say. So the one key thing about this is that when you are speaking about things, ideally being acknowledged or sort of, people asking you what you think might really work better. There's also potential for harsh words to come out of this energy, because a 10-20 can be about saying things that are not necessarily the nicest words possible. But the other perspective is empowering people with the words that you say. So we have the duality of both, and where we stand on it in any given moment can be just based on what we're doing and who we are, and how we're expressing ourselves. And also with the 1222 activated, that is an expression of our emotional energy that is vocalized as well, because we have pure access right to the throat to be able to talk about exactly what we want to say and express ourselves individually. So there's potential for us to say things that maybe we don't necessarily mean, or for others to say things that they don't necessarily mean. So that's something to keep in mind. If you feel that you're in an interaction where it just gets too much and people are saying too much, then sometimes just breaking auric space and just going in a different direction might actually work to your advantage. And I think that might be one of the key themes that we're really pushing for, is our own individuality, our own authenticity, being allowed to be who we are without intervention from others trying to say, no, you can't be like that. And I think that may be a very big push, where you just feel like you just have to speak your truth, and you just can't be quiet any longer. In other words, if you need to retreat, because like I said, the gate 12 is about retreating and not socializing. Sometimes that's the best key, because you're getting away from things and you're deciding what you want to say. And when you feel like you're in the mood to actually go out and socialize, then that's the best time to actually articulate yourself in a way that you're feeling like people are hearing what you have to say. And then if you look at the gate 11 and we bring that back in, this is also about being stimulated or wanting to stimulate others with your ideas. And then this is, again, a half of a projected channel, the 1156, where you want to not only talk about everything, your ideas, your concepts, all those types of things, and you added in the individuality, or this need to be exactly who you are and be accepted for who you are. There's a lot of ways that we could kind of feel like we're not being heard the way we want to be heard this week. So ideally, if we can allow people to ask us what we have to say, and if we're in a situation where we're not feeling like we can be ourselves, or we're feeling like we're not being heard the way we want to be, a lot of times just retreating and going into your own space until things settle down and you feel like you want to face the world again. And on December 16th, we have Mercury moving into the gate 58, and the gate 58 is joy. And this is logical energy. This is finding joy in the perfect pattern, you could say. And it is also finding joy in challenging the patterns or getting the corrections that you want. And when we look at the gate 58, this is about wanting to have fun, a lot of times going out and enjoying a party and wanting to have the good life, you could say. So we add that in to the whole concept of the gate 30, line 4 with Jupiter there. That's it, this idea of really wanting to get out and party and have fun, but maybe overdoing it. So in other words, moderation in all things is really, I think, a good mantra to have this week. December 17th, we have Venus going into the last gate it's going to go into before it goes into retrograde. It goes into the 60 line 1. It doesn't go beyond there. Now, the 60 line 1 is very important in that we're talking about an energy where we're the beginning of the gate 60, the gate of limitation, but it's also the gate of mutation. The limitation comes from the idea that mutation takes time and energy and effort to be proven that it's worthwhile before it's brought into the collective. We get Venus in the gate 60, line 1. We might get a little bit of a glimpse into the future, because Pluto's going to spend a lot of time in the gate 60 next year, and will give us an idea of how it's going to show up. Now, limitation is something that when we work with the gate 60, it's this idea of having a limitation, seeing that you only have this many options, and how can you work with those options in a way that you're feeling that you're being satisfied with what you are doing. So in other words, you don't have every opportunity, you don't have every tool in your tool chest, but you do have a few things. And how are you going to use those in a creative way so that you can feel as if you are doing just fine and everything is working okay? As soon as you start to accept the limitation, because the whole key with this energy is they said limitation is the beginning of transcendence, which in other words means that when you start to see limitation as part of life in general, that is when you start to transcend the you could say the worldly perspective of how we live on the Maya and move to a different perspective of a spiritual kind of up leveling, you could say. And it's also as soon as we decide that we are okay and comfortable within this limitation is when we usually get an up level to something bigger. So this is where we're testing ourselves to be okay with what the world looks like right now with the limitations that we have. We know that with us supply chains and the reality that we're living with is that things are in shorter supply this year than they have been last year, even through 2020. So it's encouraging us to be able to work with what we have in a way that is more creative and to maybe thinking of new ways to do old jobs, you could say. And that's kind of what this energy is encouraging us to do. So on December 18th, we have the full moon. And when we get to the full moon, in any full moon, we are talking about this idea of sort of a culmination of the energy of the new moon, you could say, and which would have been the actual solar eclipse. But now we're getting to the point where we're getting to the end of the cycle. And when we see that there's a lot of 6 lines, it really does show that we are moving into new energy. So we have the sun is in the 6th line, 11, line 6, moon is in the 12, line 6. We also have the earth in the 12, line 6. We also have Mercury in the gate 58, line 6. Now there's a bit of a mixed bag within this energy. There is this reticence to with the gate 12 and the line 6, this reticence of what's the point of trying to evolve or trying to change anything because nothing ever really gets changed. And this perspective of not feeling that we have any choice or any power within the energy to actually make a change, but the reality is we do. And this is where we talk about the gate 12 is in the whole channel, the 1222, which we're going to have, is this idea that we are evolving spirit consciousness. The 1222 is individual energy. It is related to spirit consciousness because it is an emotional channel. And this is also related to the 3955, which talks about, we know that the 55 is part of the 2027 shifts that we're going to be having. So this is really talking about the potential for us to evolve spiritually, to move to a different dimension, to raise our consciousness if we are open to it, and to see that it may be not as easy as we would want it or hope it to be, but there is still potential for us to actually make shifts in our own consciousness. And if we make shifts in our own consciousness and increase our spirit consciousness, give our spirit, which means that sharing our spirit with others, when we do that, we're automatically feeling empowered because we're actually able to share who we are, but we're also empowering others because of our ability to share who we are, because we're feeling empowered. I mean, that's the concept with anything with the individual energy. When we talk about the gate 11, this is having a lot of ideas. The ideas are meant to be given away. Some are, and the good ones are meant to be kept for you, because anything that is coming from the gate 11, there's just too many ideas to do something with all of them. So in other words, you give away some of your ideas and you also keep the important ones for yourself so that you do what you want to do. We have the right ideas that we have potential to access that can actually make a change in the collective. So this is what we're saying. So, we have this reticence of, can we even make a change? Can we bring our spirit consciousness to the world? But the gate 11 says, yes, we can, because I do have ideas that we can share. And, that's the collective working with the individuality potentially. And that's one of the best places to be, because, individuality wants to be part of the collective. In the beginning, it's a mutation, but only when something is taken into the collective does a mutation or an evolution of humanity ever have an opportunity to really become something. It is grounding into it, and it is also an emotional connection to spirit consciousness, and just wanting to have this real evolution of spirit. And I think that, going into 2022, I think that's going to be a big push, because when you are in a position where limitation is part of your new reality, finding a spiritual connection can really help with you to work with the energy in a way that you're feeling empowered rather than disempowered. We also have Mercury in the gate 58, line 6. This is just reminding us to know when enough is enough. Like if we continue to push the envelope, to continue to push to go out and enjoy ourselves, all things in moderation, if we're always enjoying ourselves, eventually we can get a little bit run down, a little bit tired. So this is just reminding us to know when to say it's enough, and to know when to when to go out and have fun, and to know when to stay home and just relax as well. Mars is in annihilation, which I talked about. So in other words, using our power in a way that we can make creative changes. So I think that there is potential for this reticence to be within this energy, but also this ability to, if we dig in a little deep, we can actually make the changes that we really want to. Venus is also exalted in the gate 60, line 1. This is giving us this acceptance and this inner harmony to deal with the limitations all around us. And in other words, this is saying that despite what's happening, despite if there's shortages, despite whatever, we are still able to dig in and say, you know what, I don't mind that this is happening. I'm going to still have fun. I mean, I always like to go, because this time of the year, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, if you know the story at the end, I hope I'm not spoiling it for anybody, but ultimately the Grinch took all their toys and all their food and everything. So in other words, they had nothing when they woke up on Christmas Day, and yet they still sang songs and were happy because they had each other. And it was just this idea of they had a lot of limitations, and yet they were able to transcend them and still find joy. And when that joy was expressed by them, it kind of spread to everyone around. And that's kind of this energy. So in other words, even though things may not look perfect the way we want them to, being able to be okay with that can be something that is heartwarming and can allow us to evolve in our own individuality and our own expression of ourselves. And Venus is going to go retrograde on the 19th. So that is it for the week. I hope you have a super week and a good full moon, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye for now.